This daf Yerushalmi Shekalim. Even though today's daf in the article Oz Vardish is daf noon, I'm going to start from 2 dots again on Mentes and base, 4 lines about him. Vona lo yifchos mikomets, which in the Vilna Yerushalmi should be right at the bottom of Chazayin and base, and in the Vilna Bavli Yerushalmi, it's on Yurches Amud Beis, and a little bit hard to find. If you look where it says Takin Chadati in the left-hand margin, and you go up from there, right opposite you see the word Zahav lo yifchos. But if you go up from there, 11 lines, you'll see 2 dots at the end of the line. It says Vama Marocha, then 2 dots. And then the next line starts Levona lo yifchos mikomets. So we'll start from there. Now, one of the reasons I'm starting there is because yesterday I said I go with Korban Eda. No, not going to Korban Eda, not going to the main shot in the article, going to the 2 different shatim here, the Takni Charatin, which is based on the Groz Girsa, and Reb Chaim, which is based on the Bavli Girsa, neither of which is like the Yerushalmi Girsa. Okay, so the Korban Eda goes with Yerushalmi's Girsa, which is very difficult to sustain. It's much easier to go with one of the Girsa of the Bavli or the Gra. Okay, so Levona lo yifchos mikomets. So Levona should not, you give me Medativ Levona, can't be less than a kometz, a fistful. So Nemar kan Askara. It says Askara by a mincha, by whichever one is first, it doesn't really matter. It says by lechem apanim and also by a regular mincha. Okay, so we mentioned yesterday that even though the claimant is mentioned regular mincha is told by the claimants of the Kamati Shem Lokum Somi Saltomi Shamna Al Kol Levonosa. So it's the komets is going on the solus and the shemen. Nevertheless, we learn also in the juxtaposition of komets that Levonos also be a komets, right? And it says care v'iktirakwein esas korasa. It says by lechem apanim also l'salim rechas levonos so lechem la'askora. So by both of them it says askora was vayikach of dalad zayin was vayikach base. Vayikach of dalad zayin is lechem apanim. Vayikach base is the regular mincha. So Ne'emar kan Askora min eretz not al Askora. It says it twice. Ma Askora hamur lahalom malei komets, just as Askora by the mincha is malei komets. Avkan also by Levona by the lechem apanim malei komets. Imaz kora mur lahalon. Okay, but let's maybe learn back the other way as well. Imaz kora mur lahalon. So let's go what you said by the lechem apanim shnei kometzim. It's 2 kamasim. Afkan shnei kamasim. So to here it's 2 kamasim. Now, yesterday we mentioned Afkan could be either by the Nadava, that the Nadava, when you bring a Dava, you have to be Minadi 2 kamasim, or like the Takin Chadatin, which I think is more likely to be the shot, by a regular mincha. Perhaps you have to be to bring 2 kaimetzes of Levona. Besides the kaimetz of Selus and Shemen, you have to bring 2 kaimetzes of Levona. So, on that says Gemara, no. Rabbi Lula said, "Klum dam b'kametz ela." Now here in the Yerushalmi it says in the article lechem apanim. That's not what it says in the Vilna in the Bavli version, and it's not what it says in the Gra. So we're going to try both of those. So klum dam b'kametz ela, according to the Gra, the Girsa is ela mi mincha. We learned the kometz from mincha, as we just said, from the juxtaposition of kometz to the Solos Shemen, the kometz of the Boina, right? That's the girsa of the Gra. The girsa of the Bavli is mi minchas chayte. We don't have a minchas chayte, and the way Reb Chaim explains it is by where is it now? There's by minchas there's 1 kometz, right? There's no levona, no anything else, just the kometz of the flower itself. Now it's true. There, it's not. No levona is mentioned there either, but It's called an askara. It's called the komets. So also here, so the by the regular mincha, the we learn a komets is the shir of askara. Now lechem panim requires two because it's two separate marachos, but the by mincha it's clearly one komets, just like the komets of minchas chayte, which means askara is one komets. So to the komets of the levina, which comes by mincha, it's nedava, is also just one komets, not two kometzim. So again, if it's like the gra, then it's like the takin chadim, which is going to be inside. Elami mincha lamduk, just me mincha, not mincha tzkoite. Like we learned for the carbon 8 already yesterday. Because I'm going to read takin chadim just 3 months. Because I mean, minachas diksiv verim menu bekum so milo says mincha shem nas kol levona makish levona la rama de mincha. Ma rama de mincha koimets al levona gankin koimets. Right. We'll come to the rest of Takin Chayte in a moment. But if you learn out from Minchas Chayte, it's like we just said from the Reb Chaim that it's learned out from the fact that the Haskara by Minchas Chayte is a koimetz. Here too, it's a koimetz. Now, in the next line of the Gemara, there's a change in the Gra. I'm not sure why I have to change it. Why the Gra feels compelled to change it. It says. So again, Amela Klum Lamdu Lekometz Ella either me mincha like the gra or me minchas chayte like the bavli. But now it says Mal Lekometz Achoser Posel Afkan Chometz Achoser Posel. Also, we learned from the kometz either from minchas chayte or from regular mincha that a kometz Achoser is Posel. Now that actually is a machlekes, and the gra changes the gears to Malal kimus hachaser kosher, Afkan kimus hachaser kosher, and the Takin Chadi of course goes to the Gross Gear, so he says umino malal. I mean for the Takin Chadi malal kimus hachaser kosher, Afkan kimus hachaser kosher. Okay, and so it's Rabbi Elos according to the episode. Behold, this tefillah b'levona boy ma'mincha. Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yehuda. The flea women ochas gabi chisel bonzav v'svilei the kosher. He holds the chesed bon as kosher. Gansir kechai mehan meroi Rabbi Yam Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha the slay machlokas melvana mincha kram bilvana bifnei atzma. There's also the same machlokas melvana which comes by itself. That as opposed to the kamatzim of the bazichin, the lechem apanim that the dibra kol chesed is possible. So of course. Says to us clearly that we can't learn out from lechem hapanim. Perhaps that's why the Gemara changed gears. In other words, in order to show we clearly can't learn lechem hapanim that it's two kamatzim, because then we would have to say chiser is possible, but we say chiser is kosher. So clearly lechem hapanim, all that we do is learn out from mincha to lechem hapanim, but not lechem hapanim back to mincha, because otherwise the kometz chasser would be possible, but it's not. It's kosher. Okay, but the Shari Teres Yisrael does not change the gear. The Shari Teres Yisrael goes with the gears of the Gra in the beginning that we learned from Mincha, not from Minchas Chayte, and then it grows with the Nusach of the Bavli afterwards that we have that we learn out that Koimetz HaChos is possible, like we have in front of us. So in the Yerushalmi as well. Right? So mal kometz hachos apostle, afkan kometz hachos apostle. So that would mean that just like kometz by a regular by the mincha is possible, the kometz of the solos and the shemen, so to the kometz of levona is possible, right? If it's chos or anything, and that leads very nicely into the next sugya. That's why it seems to be very advantageous to keep the girsa mal chometz possible, afkan chometz chosers possible. So I prefer to go with that girsa as the Bavli and Reb Chaim and even the Yerushalmi does, unless you change it like the Gra. So because the next line is very good. So if Rabbi Ila says that a chometz choser is possible, so then hamisnadev, and most unfortunately, we're going to change the girsa from mincha to levona. Because here we're talking about levona. I know most of them actually, but certainly the Gra, the Takin Chaytin changes it, and I think the Reb Chaim changes it, and I think the Vilna itself has Levoina. Yeah, it says. I mean, it's not even in Bren says Mincha. It says Levoina, right? In without the parentheses, so it's clearly like Mincha is a mistake. So the actually, I want to point that out, Mike, more here. Yeah, so Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a Levoina. The Mevia becomes a Kohen. Now here the Bavli takes out the word Gadol, which you have here in the Yerushalmi, but Reb Chaim believes it in, and he says Gadol doesn't mean a Kohen Gadol. Obviously, the Kohen went after the Kohen Gadol doesn't mean the Menachos. You mean a large Kohen. A large Kohen. A Kohen has a big fist. Okay? Because since you have to miss the Kohen has to, that can't be Chaser. So, so therefore you'd have to bring the bigger, if you're Menadev a Levoina, you have to be Menadev the biggest possible hand size. You know, the hand size of a basketball player. You know, somebody who has a big hand size. So, maybe a Kohen, either Kohen or a Kohen Gadol, a Grace Kohen, right, who has a large hand size. So because otherwise we have it'd be Chaser, it'd be possible, right? So he's not bringing a Kohen showing. Again, it flows very greatly, but very very nicely. You know that you're supposed to be Kohen's Chaser is possible, just like the Kohen's is possible by. So doesn't Shemin if it's Chaser, so to the Kohen's Levoina. And Chizur b'Shem Rabbi said no, I feel the Kohen's Bailim. He said no. You can bring the koymetz, even koymetz bailim, meaning that it's not considered to be a chisaron in the your mincha in your nezava if you bring enough levina, or if you give enough money for levina of koymetz bailim. That's as the Kohen said. Then we come on the dava b'ifnei atzmai. That's in the dava in itself. It doesn't have to be the same size as the big coin. Okay, fine. I think the sugya works out very well that way, and we go on to the next sugya. So the Mishnah had said that zav leifchos bin zav. If you bring gold, you shouldn't bring less than a dinar zav. So Amar Belezer said, "Who she's kirtzur?" He mentioned a tzura, a form, like the form on a coin. Avelois kirtzur. If he didn't mention a form, then you don't have to necessarily bring a coin. Maybe avilu can even bring a small gold fork. I assume it also means you can bring money, with which hektish could buy a small gold fork. But it has to be they can bring something corresponding to a kli, which is usable even of a minimal size. As you mentioned, gold coin specifically. Shishla Nadava. There were 6 pushkas for Nadava. So his correct Shisha Bate Avos, the corresponding 6 Bate Avos. So Takli Kharatin says that basically more Menachos Daf Kuzayin Lo Asil in Suye. There was every mishmar, there are 24 mishmars, is divided into 6 Bate Avos. Each one served differently. The week on Shabbos all served together. So they shouldn't fight. Each one its own pushka. So it's unfortunately 2 different possibilities here. Either everybody gave the dava gave to whoever base of they wanted to give, and therefore they wouldn't fight because nobody could say, well, you got more than me. And they say it's not my fault because they put in my pushka, or that they would put it in one large pot to begin with, and then the hektish should divide it up into each one of the 6 batei avos, and that way they're equally distributed. And of course, then they also wouldn't come to fight. So whichever way the case may be, they would each base of had a pushka in which the people deposit directly, or which the hektish distributed the funds which were collected. And then each day they would take the base of would take from its pushka the money and buy for the kayetz hamizbech. By Pradayim, my connection is corresponding to 6 different animals. Of course, they're different prices, which people could bring as an olas nedava, or what could be brought as an olas nedava, and people would donate for these olas nedava. Par, fully grown cattle, egel, calf, sawyer, fully grown goat, ayil, fully grown ram, male sheep, gedi, a young goat, with a young sheep. All had to be zcharim, and all these male animals of various different sizes and types were all kosher to be korbanos ola. The Shmuel Mark chase Karbanos, this is course which would have most sorrows, from which most sorrows would be brought as Olos Nadava. And then Kine Zavim Zavos, the Karbanos brought by Zavim and Zavos, and they have to bring Karbanos. Kine Yoldos, the birds brought by Yoldos, and have to bring women who gave birth. Chatos, the leftover from Chatos, Hashamos, leftover Osham, Menachos, leftover from Mincha, Vasir say from leftover the Asir say for Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yechon said yet another pshat. Why the 6 shofaros? Aidation Davam Ruba Riblo Shavas Harbe, because of many, there was a lot of money, so they put in many different pushkas. And the Mepharshim say the reason put in many different pushkas was Kadesh Lois Apshu Amos, so that the Gemara Melacha says that. If you put a lot of money in one pushka, so then it's going to get rusty or moldy or whatever the case may be, it's going to deteriorate. So if they had a lot of pushkas, in order to hold all the money in different smaller amounts, so they wouldn't impact negatively on each other. Okay, now the Gemara mentioned, the Mishnah mentioned actually, Drasha Yoda HaKohen Kohen Gadol, and the Gemara talks about other things which Yoda did. Sorry. And the first pasuk, let's read it in Torah Yerushalmi here, from Divrei Yoim Beis, Chavdal Yudal. V'chosam eviu lifnei hamelech v'yoda eshar kesef. They brought the rest of money they raised. They asu kelim beis Hashem. They made kelim for the beis hamikdash klei shoris v'halos v'chapos uchlei zahav v'kesef. They vayumalim olos beis Hashem tamid kol yimei yoda. Okay, interesting pasuk. They brought all this extra money, and they made the nuclear shores, and they brought more olos. So as the article brings down here in note 9, Atalia, the wicked Atalia, who was the mother of Achazio, and her children destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and took all the Kodshim and Beis Hashem to Avodas Haba. After she was put to death, the king Yoash, who was one of her, I think the only one of her children who survived her purge, I forget if it was her son or grandson, but in any event, the king Yoash and Yoda Kohen Gadol needed to gather more money in order to refurbish the Beis Hamikdash and buy new kelim for the Beis Hamikdash. And it's discussing about what they did after they finished the Gabayis. They took the extra money, they took the money, and they made these kelim. Okay, so the and this is Shuman Barnach, which I mean, this is Shtein Davos also. He made two. Yoyada made two nedavos, which are 2 aronos for the money. The dava here means aron. Tare Shmuel nedava achas. Shmuel says 1 aron, 1 large closet for the money. Now, why we say 2 closets? So the Korban Eder brings down. I don't know if say this. Shtei devos saw the melachim ksiv vaykachi yoda kohen aron echad vayikov kochor bedato. It says they took an aron and made a hole in its door. But then also mizbeach, we mean to put it by his back on the right side. V'gomer. With Divrei Yomim, the pasuk I read before, ksiv vayomer hamelech v'asu aron v'nu b'shar beis Hashem. At the gate, chutza, outside, not next to mizbeach. Masha shtei aronos also. Sounds like 2 aronos. Ech mifnim v'ech mechutz. Stam shtei minim nedavos also. It must be there were guys called shtei nedavos nedavachas. As you must see, these 2 closets, these 2 big boxes, wherever they were made for 2 different nedavos. So again, Rabbi Shimon Nachman Shem says shtei nedavos also, 2 aronos, 1 inside, 1 outside. Tanya Rabbi Shmuel says nedavachas, 1 aron. So it says Gemara. So it says that it's not the same arm which is Malachim, which was inside. This is an arm which is outside. I can say only 1 arm. So Ravuna mivnei etmeim. He says no, or Ravuna on account of etmeim. So the Korban Eder explains that lo'olam nedav achas. So it really is 1 arm. She doesn't less than mifnim. You got to put inside. Avamelch Meshinu Mechutz put outside. They shu gam atmeim. Dain atmei meis v'sheretz. People are now allowed into the Azora. Lite and Tocho, they could put their money inside. Shem Mutan Levo Machne Levia, because they're allowed to come to Machne Levia, but not into the Azora. So therefore he said, put it outside because it's atmeim. So it was one Aron. The king said to relocate it. Okay. The Rav Chuna b'Shem Yetzet said, he said, Al Shem Ach lo yaseh beis Hashem sipos kesef. This is pasuk. Looking beis Ach lo yaseh beis Hashem sipos kesef. Mizamas zokos chatzotos b'chol kli zohar v'kli kesef min hakesef amuva beis Hashem. What does it mean? So the Karmen says, Al Shem Klamar Kochalum understand the doubles. It's got to be two in the doubles. The Melachim Ksiv, by Melachim the pasuk just read sleeve Achla yaseh beis Hashem sipos mizamas chulei min hakesef amuva beis Hashem. It says that he didn't make the klisharis from it. They make klisharis. If I understand the Vavasayo, so it mustn't do the doubles. I mean, a kesef amuva beis Hashem from the money which is brought into the beis Hashem, right inside, which is what in Melachim, hanadavak suva Melachim lo nasu klisharis. But the Divrei which is outside, you need the chutz beis Hashem, menosu klisharis, and that when they make klisharis. So again, let's read it inside the Gemara. Rav Chuna b'Shem Rav Yosef Hashem Achla said beis Hashem b'tzipos kesef. The stuff which is brought into the house of Hashem was not made sipos kesef. Means sipos kesef. Lo yaseh beis Hashem. From the Karmei changes the gear, so he says just sipos kesef lo yaseh beis Hashem. He takes the word mean, but in other words, from the stuff which came into the beis Hashem, they didn't make the klei shores. They used that for the korbanos. The stuff which came to the closet outside the beis Hashem, that's the stuff from the davos from which they made the klei shores. It's a radical pshat talking chayat in what you mentioned, where he says not that they moved it, that there was the one aron which they moved, but that it was a huge aron. They extended it, so part of it was outside because the Tmeim could put into one part of it, while the Torah would put inside the part which made inside the Azara. Okay, turning us to the stop in the Nauf and the end of the Perek. We'll stop here for today.